Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. A couple of days break at the VALORANT World Championship as we get ready for the playoffs. The final 8 teams have been determined after yesterday's games. Lots of reaction to the way the bracket is currently working out. The players talking about it, the fans talking about it, the community getting involved as well. Is the bracket rigged again over the last couple of years? Chronicle reckons that he's very surprised indeed the way the bracket's worked out in the same way. Absolutely, over the last couple of seasons, the chances of that theoretically being rather small, but obviously it's what's happened again. What does it mean for the rest of the tournament? Who are now the chief favourites to win the entire thing? Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. This, of course, is Fnatic taking the mick out of Alpha, who, well, he looks pretty happy on the left-hand side after he got the eyebrows done. I don't know if he's so convinced this is the way to go. But, look, it is what it is. Fnatic are going to play in a couple of days' time. We'll see who their matchups against in just a couple of seconds. This, just to quickly mention, because we saw Ocelot Esports signing BCJ, I think, the other day, and now we're seeing a similar thing here for Oxy. Now, there are, of course, questions what's going to happen with Oxy because he's on Cloud9. Cloud9 are not going to get rid of him. I mean, they certainly should not. He is their best player, I would say, and the argument is that Cloud9 need to build around Oxy rather than anything else. But, of course, there might well be interest from other parties into Oxy, and therefore, you know, signing with an agency maybe says a little bit of something in terms of the way those negotiations, in terms of renewal, might be going with Cloud9 or what could be happening elsewhere. T1's coach data, by the way, after not the season they wanted, they're parting ways with him. So, you know, we're seeing lots of these Rostermania things kind of creep through every single day. Not all of them, of course, are going to be player related. They may be coaching staff related. And, you know, we've seen what that looks like. Safe, by the way, confirms that, like, he's not going to be done. There were rumors about his retirement, whether he was going to stay or whether he was going to go. Phenomenal player, you know, a player that I think in many respects deserves to be at the top 8 of the World Championship, but the team didn't. They went down, and as Safe says, I've had hundreds of defeats, and yet there's never been one more painful to me than on the international stage at Champions. Don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know that I'll be back for redemption. Thanks for supporting our journey. So who knows if it's going to be Vitality or somewhere else, but Safe does say, yes, I will be back. Quickly on Ardis, because, I mean, this has been entertaining over the last few days. Unfortunately for Ardis, he keeps getting DDoSed by presumably, like, this Chinese hacker squad or something. I don't really know what's going on there, but I'm sure he's trying to talk to his internet provider, internet service provider, and trying to find a way around it, get a new IP or something. I don't know. But, you know, he's been struggling to even get the stream live over the last few days, which is unfortunate just because the content is very entertaining. Now, the problem was that he went to support China. He was obviously the China hater. Then after Trace Esports started taking Ws, he became the China lover. They started to fall off a little bit. And then he decided, all right, I'm going to support PaperX instead. And then we know what happens next. PaperX go down. Now, this is really interesting, right? PaperX came into this tournament, not, I would say, as like a favourite or the favourite, but certainly up there, right? I mean, they've been there or thereabouts for the last several years, and they were obviously in the World Championship Grand Final last year, but I just don't think this meta suits them on some level. It's just, you know, they can't tend to play, when they try and play normal, it just doesn't quite work for them, but you've kind of got to play relatively normal right now if you want to make it work. And EDG just hard countered the map 2, map 3. The crazy thing about this series, though, was that PaperX, like, it's not like they came out slow. They dominated the Icebox on Edward's pick 13-3. And at this point, I'm like, well, fair play, PaperX, GG. Edward once again collapsing when it matters on the international stage. But no, that's when Smoggy, Chi-Chu, and others certainly turned up. And, you know, Kang was all the rage, of course, and understandably so. But Smoggy has, not exactly slowly, but he's really gaining kind of footing in that conversation of being the best Chinese player right now. They win the Sunset 13-8, and then they dominate the Lotus on their attacking side 13-4 and close out the series. So yeah, PaperX, what's going on with them and what next for these guys, right? Because they made that controversial move. Well, not controversial really. I mean, Jing of course was meant to do military service, then he didn't have to. Monyet was in there, Monyet was gone. They made the change. It was like, wow, okay, PaperX are going to be back to being a top 3 team in the world, but it doesn't necessarily always work like that. And the way their season has ended, not even making it to the playoffs of the tournament, will be a serious dagger for them, and questions will be raised on whether, you know, changes are necessary for next season's Valorant's Champions Tour and exactly what PaperX are going to look like then. Look, if the meta changes, they could be really back to form, but right now it doesn't suit them, but it's just not like they played well either, right? And Azado says, you know, who do I support? Obviously, China don't mess with me. PaperX are out of the tournament already, so yeah, who knows what's going to happen next. But after all of these surprising results, I thought this is incredible. Over 1.4 4 million players entered the pick'ems for the tournament, and guess how many people got it right? A grand total of 0 players got a perfect 160 points. Even like 112 points got you into the top 1%. That just shows how many upsets there were and how basically impossible it was to predict stuff like, you know, Paper X out in groups in the way that they were, in exactly the seed they were in, and Trace Esports winning the group over in Group C, like, you know, some remarkable stuff. But after this happened, of course, we then had to determine what the bracket was going to be and who was going to play who in the upcoming rounds. Tender's looking at the situation. Of course, we've got Foxy9 looking at the situation we'll discuss in a second, but this is the way the bracket eventually turned out. Now, they were meant to do like a live draw for this. It eventually just kind of like appeared, and here we go. So Sentinels will play DRX in the first round. Now, there's obviously talk about the fact that there are a fair few intra-regional matchups here. Not for Sentinels, they play the only remaining team from the Pacific, and for the Pacific region, right, given where they've been over the last couple of years, they have to come to terms with the fact that DRX, who historically have not been the best at converting these international tournaments, they do love a top 6, don't they, DRX? And it's very possible that it happens again, to be honest. They are the only hopes remaining, though, from the Pacific. They play Sentinels round 1. That's a big game. Like Sen, obviously, given the matches they just won, they can absolutely win that series. Whether they will or not, I mean, who knows? I think it's really 50-50, to be honest. Then we, though, have Trace Esports Edward. So, battle of the Chinese teams, the 2 Chinese teams remaining. One of them will advance. Tough to call. I mean, Edward, of course, will always be favoured in those intra-regional matchups, but Trace have played phenomenal so far this tournament, and of course they're the number 1 seed. G2 versus Lev, that is a banger, and we'll talk a bit more on that in a second. And then Heretics Fnatic, another cracking series, really. So the bracket is shaping out to be really nice, I'd say, and, you know, Trace Esports Edward is interesting, but like every other game is an absolute banger, I would say, and this is the way that it's going to go. So a couple of days off today, tomorrow, and then the 14th, we're back on the Wednesday with DRX Sen, then Trace Edward Gaming, and then on the Thursday we have the upcoming 2 games as well. So lots of reaction to this. The first thing I wanted to mention, though, was, is it rigged or is it scripted or something like that? Because Chronicle is talking about that for the last couple of years, the seeding has been identical. So let's just have a look at this, right, from a couple of years ago now. If you number the teams from Group A as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you'll find that the bracket every year has been 6 versus 7, 1 versus 4, 3 versus 2, 5 versus 8. And if you look at last year's games, you'll see the same thing occurred again. And, okay, not always in quite the same order, but nonetheless, you had 5, 8, 1, 4, and you had 7, 6, and 3, 2 play against each other. So what this effectively means, and it's the same story again this year as well, that it's Group A versus Group B, and then Group C versus Group D, and they just mishmash the teams, right? Because it's got to be first seed versus second seed, but for the last 3 years now in a row, it's always been Group A plays Group B and Group C plays Group D. So is it really randomized? I mean, basically, Chronicle apparently crunched the numbers on this and says the chances of this happening are about 0.02% if his maths isn't wrong. So kind of saying that, well, it's unlikely to be not decided beforehand, right? It's plausible that this stuff has been predetermined. At the same time, though, you've got to consider that there are only so many things you can do, because you can't allow teams to play, you know, another one from the same group, and when you do that and you allow for that variation, you then get that there aren't like too many other options you can go for. But it is nonetheless interesting to see the way this bracket played out again in a similar way to where it has the last couple of years. And even Will Miner mentions this, that the seeded is, you know, the bracket is seeded exactly the same way as the last couple of years. Even he predicted precisely the games a few days ago based on exactly what we've seen over the last couple of years. So yeah, very interesting. As he says, the restrictions on what you can do with the groups mean that there aren't that many scenarios, but it is nonetheless still interesting the way that this has gone. But I wanted to just talk about some of the crucial matchups here, right? Because this is going to be a very interesting one. DRX versus Sentinels. Foxy9 is actually really excited for what he says. The fanboy that was imitating you, who came all the way up here. I've been trying to meet you for 4 years. This moment feels like a dream. Now I have to beat my idol, who I always see on the monitor as an enemy. He says, see you soon at 10s versus Sentinels soon. So this is going to be, a good vibe series. But it is going to be a banger. The one that I'm massively looking forward to, though, is G2 versus Leviathan, because, I mean, the Americas, again, they look like the strongest team. They have 3 teams here in the playoffs, which no other region does have. But Lev G2 is always pretty spicy. We've seen some spicy matchups between these two over the last couple of months, and certainly the whole Tech's angle, right? Tech's gone from G2, well, technically the guard as they were previously, but that's the situation there. So that's always a pretty spicy match, and I don't know who's going to win this one. I mean, G2, given what they've done over the last couple of weeks, might be slightly favoured, but you could also definitely say that it should be Lev. On this type of stage, will G2 take a step up? Maybe. They've looked really good so far, but obviously we know the firepower that Leviathan have. So that's an absolute banger game. It seems like Ethan's looking forward to it as well. And obviously Fnatic versus Heretics, another banger as well. Like, we've seen these guys play from time to time all season long. Best team in EMEA is really the question right now, because if you guys have a look at this, pretty interesting that after the group stages early on, it was like 2-2, and now we find that the Americas have 3 representatives, China has 2 representatives, EMEA with 2, and Pacific with only DRX. Could you believe it? So, pretty remarkable how this tournament has turned out so far, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Thought it was incredible, by the way, how over the group stages, the players were so spread out, really, in terms of there's barely any of the same player from the same team. You've got Smoggy from EDG, Sassy, highest rated Sentinels player, very impressive given, the talk about, if they bomb out of this tournament, is Sassy on the chopping block, etc, etc. Durka, Rians from Heretics, the same. Ranking there is pretty exciting. Kesnit from Crew. Then Aspas is here. I mean, he's always going to be there or thereabouts, but it's pretty spread out, this list. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.